Welcome everyone. This is brand new to Seesaw for pre-K through second grade teachers. You are in the right spot if you have never used Seesaw before or need some support getting started. So we are glad that you are here learning with us today. We are honored to have you. Just note this is going to be interactive, so make sure you have your second device ready. Make sure it has Seesaw the Learning Journal downloaded on that device. And this is actually where you will find that. How do you actually download this? It's several, we're on all sorts of devices. So this is where you would find it on any given device. Just also know that if you want to join just via a website at app.seesaw.me in a web browser like Chrome, you can do that as well when we are playing along. So that's a little bit about setup. And this goes way back. If you maybe downloaded Seesaw but haven't updated it in, since June of 2018, make sure it's updated because we've got some major changes that came out last June and more to come. So you'll want to make sure that is updated as well. So again, let's really get started now. Brand new to Seesaw for pre-K2, and I'm Angela. I taught kindergarten for 15 years, so I adore being with you here today. You're my people. I love all teachers, but I really have a special place for my primary teachers. I had 5 iPads in my classroom and about 24 little friends using those devices. I now lead the community team here at Seesaw because I was so amazed with what it provided for my students and families. I wanted to share that with the world. Please connect with me on Twitter. I'm at Mrs. Gadke. I'd love to connect with you in that space. So let's talk about our plan for today. We are going to accomplish a lot. I'm going to introduce you to Seesaw. We're going to play with some creative tools you will explore as a student. You're going to get some activity ideas for your own classroom, and then we will spend some time with questions and next steps. So at Seesaw, our mission is to help inspire students to be their best. And we do that with a platform for student engagement that really allows students to get creative. They can choose from our creative tools. They can express themselves and reflect on their learning. They really create a portfolio that they are proud to show others. You're also going to get tons of ideas because we have a Seesaw activity library that's going to save you lots of prep time. These are activities that are ready to use. You can collect student responses and, let's just say it, lug home fewer papers, which I love. And you're going to be able to focus more on your students. So you're going to be able to hear what each of your students is thinking, understand maybe the key concepts that they have walked away with in a lesson, and be able to differentiate instruction. So this sounds amazing, right? It is pretty amazing. So how does Seesaw actually work? So teachers can find or create activities to share with students. Students can take pictures, drawing, record their voice. All of this can be captured in their portfolio, and then families can view this work and leave comments or feedback and just have those conversations even at home with what is happening in school. So I think a good way to understand a little bit more about Seesaw is to actually listen to a student example. So I'm going to go into an example. This is a first grade student that maybe this looks a little bit like your classroom when they are playing with these wonderful Unifix math cubes and learning a little bit about addition. So let's see what happens here.
This is how I make 7. 4 plus 3 equals 7. 6 plus 1 equals 7. 5 plus 3 equals 7. Wait, no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I need to cross out one of these. Okay, and 5 plus 3 does not equal 7, so 5 plus 2 equals 7.
Wow, right? So as a teacher, I have such insight about what this student is able to do. If they had just recorded this, on a worksheet, or they had done this hands-on in my classroom and I didn't have a chance to walk around to see every student, which we often don't have that luxury, right? You can still get this great information about next steps that you can take. So I love that example because I think it's really simple, adding a layer of Seesaw onto what you're currently doing. And I don't want you to add to your super long list, right? Because especially at this time of year, we have long, long lists. I want you to think of it instead of adding something totally separate. Think about enhancing what you're already doing in your class. Because I imagine if you are here right now listening and learning, you are probably a pretty amazing teacher that is constantly looking at ways to improve instruction and learning outcomes with students as well. So you're already pretty amazing. Seesaw works great in any classroom. So if you have shared devices or one-to-one devices, you're going to be just fine with Seesaw. Even if you have one device, you can do amazing things. And as a reminder, Seesaw is free. It works on any device, as we've talked about. And we do have some paid features, but today we're talking about only everything that's free in Seesaw, which is a whole lot. So let's peek inside a Seesaw class if you haven't yet seen this. When you get inside Seesaw, this is a class setup. This is kindergarten class as an example. So on the right, you're going to see student portfolios. Each name listed goes to their particular portfolio. On the left is the feed of all of the student work coming into the classroom. You can see this class is signed in as a teacher. I also wanted to kind of zoom in on the list of students here, the portfolios, because in a moment we are going to jump into a Seesaw class for professional development today that I don't have real student names listed. I just have the letters of the alphabet because there are lots of people here today. But I didn't want that to confuse you and think, what are these alphabet letters? I don't understand. So it's going to look a little bit different today. So we are going to check out the teacher view. Right now, you just kind of stay tuned. Let me model for you kind of what this looks like. So I'm going to jump into our Seesaw class. Now you might be thinking, what is all of this stuff in this class? This is a PD class that I use several times. So these are teachers that have been here that have added, responses and things like that. But I want to show you a couple things. You'll see here, like I mentioned, I don't have student names listed. I just have letters of the alphabet. But my class is created. I am signed in as a teacher. And when I want to get students connected, I'm going to go here on the bottom near the right. It says plus students, this little gray button. So I'm going to tap that because I'm going to show you how you get students signed into Seesaw, which you're about to do in a moment. Now, if you are live with me today, you can write down this text code, and that's going to allow you to get access to our class if you're having any issues scanning the class QR code, which I'll show you in a moment. You don't need to do that now. But those of you watching the recording, this text code will not work for you because as you can see here, it expires within an hour for safety reasons. Now, I want to show you here on the bottom right, I'm going to print the student sign-in poster because I want to show you how easy this is. Seesaw does all this work for you. You don't have to think like, what? How are they getting signed in here? Students can sign in simply by scanning this QR code with the Seesaw app. Now, I want to just show you, like, there it is. Ta-da! Hang it up in your room on the wall. So that's how we get to that QR code, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. But I wanted to show you that before we really jump in there. So we peeked at the teacher view for a moment. During this entire session, you are going to stay signed in as a student. So I will provide you with the view of what it looks like from the teacher perspective so you also understand that. But are you getting ready to sign in as a student? Here, this is actually inside my classroom. That QR code poster that I just showed you, I would hang that little friend up and over goes my students to quickly sign in. And I love this because I don't know if you've had this experience. Sometimes with signing into other, programs or apps or websites, it is, 25-digit usernames and 15-digit, passwords. And you're just thinking, oh my gosh, I'm working with 6-year-olds, right? It takes a lot of instructional time. So I love that you can just scan this, you're in, we're getting ready to go. So we are going to experience Seesaw as a student. So get ready, get your second device ready to go, ready to create. And when you get that second device, I'm actually going to show you right now. You might have Seesaw installed, which you're going to want to have that class app, but you might already be signed in as a teacher. And I know those of you that are live right now, a big chunk of you already have a Seesaw class. So in order to get signed out as a teacher right now, I'm going to show you the steps to do that. So when you tap into Seesaw, and you might already be signed in as a teacher, in the upper left, tap your profile icon. Then you're going to want to tap the gear icon and sign out. Now, we want to all be at the same spot, which looks like this, ready to be a student, because today you are not going to be a teacher, you are going to be participating as a student. So this is the time you're going to have your second device. We are going to go ahead and, are you ready? Here we go. Tap I'm a student, just like this little poster shows you. And I'm actually going to even break this down step by step. So once you tap I'm a student, you're going to see the built-in QR reader pop up. Now you might have something say, do you want to use your mic or camera or give access? Make sure you say yes, yes, yes. So that is ready to scan that class code. Okay, you're with me? So we've just tapped I'm a student. We're going to scan this class code right now. So if you need to pause this recording, for those of you that are watching via recording, you could do that. And just note, if you are live right now, when you get the recording, you can still participate via scanning this QR code, because this code does not expire. So I'm going to give everyone a moment here just to get connected so that I'm making sure you're in our class. If you are having any issues, for those of you that are live, make sure you type those in our question box as well. But I'm just going to pause here for a moment to make sure everybody gets in our class. Okay. So I'm going to move along. Speak up or in the question box if you need additional time, but it might look something like this when you get inside the class as a student, right? So what we are about to do is I'm going to do some modeling. True kindergarten teacher, right? Primary teacher, I should say. I'm going to model some steps for you, okay? So we're going to explore the creative tools, and my favorite one to start with is the photo tool. So you don't need to do anything yet. You can just kind of watch and see. But when we go in and use the camera, the photo tool, it's built right into Seesaw. So I love that my students aren't jumping around to several different spots. But when I tap photo, I am going to notice that these three little capture buttons show up. If you're using a mobile device, so it's easy for your littles to capture that picture by just tapping any of those. And what we're actually going to do today is you're going to find a 3D shape somewhere in the room that you're sitting in. It might be a sphere, a cylinder, a cone, a cube. I don't know what you're going to find, but you're going to take a photo of that 3D shape. And once you take the photo, you're going to tap that green check mark in the upper right, because that means, hey, I've got my photo of my three-dimensional shape. And then you're going to, on the left, tap the portfolio that matches the first letter of your first name, and then tap the green check in the upper right, because you're going to submit that to me, the teacher. So all posts that go into Seesaw come to the teacher first for approval. So as you can see here, you're going to probably see this blue banner on top of your work when you submit it. So are we ready? Let's do this. So here you go. You're going to tap that green add button. After you tap that green add button, remember, we are using the photo tool. So just tap photo and then take a picture of something that is a three-dimensional shape in the space that you're in, and tap that green check. Once you kind of follow and tap that green check, you're going to choose the portfolio that matches the first letter of your first name and tap the green check. So I'm going to give you some time to do that right now. And actually, I'm going to go back here to this slide just to remind you that you're going to just find a three-dimensional shape in your space and add it. So I'm going to play a little background music while you are doing this first activity. All right. Hopefully I gave you some time to play around. Some people need me to go back to the QR code, so we're going to bop back there for a second. Those of you that have already posted to our class, awesome. If you still need the class code, here it is. We are actually in a moment going to check in live in our Seesaw class so you can see again from the teacher perspective what is actually happening right now. And then we're going to cruise into some examples of using this in your classroom. So I am going to jump back to this slide so we can check in live. We're going to see how many people are with us. Woohoo! We have some people that have posted. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So you see this giant red bar at the bottom that says you have some unapproved posts. That means my students have added to Seesaw. I'm going to tap review and I'm going to get on in here. Looks awesome. And I'm to tap the green check. Look at this. Of course, this is a global classroom that lots of people have access to. Anytime if I don't approve something, I would be deleting it right here. But what's also handy on the bottom, if you have all sorts of things, look at you guys, you're doing great. I can tap this big green button and approve all of this at once. So I'm going to do that to save time today, but feel free to keep playing along. Feel free to, add more to this class. I'm going to go through some more examples. Several more examples of how you can get going with Seesaw in your own classroom. So here we go with some more classroom ideas. I think it's great to start simple. So take a day or two and capture the learning in your classroom. This is actually one of my kindergarten friends from the first day of school, and I thought, we are starting this relationship with families right off the bat. I want them to have this conversation starter at home. He was doing this cool science experiment. So as the teacher, on the right here, you'll notice when I am signed in as a teacher, when I go to the green add button, I can choose post to student journal. That is an option for me as a teacher. So it's totally fine if you as a teacher want to start exploring this flow through that lens where you are posting to the student journal first to kind of just understand the flow. Then it's super easy for students to get going. So here's my little friend that's capturing a pattern that he's creating. We have students that maybe you're working with early childhood and there's lots of building and playing and exploring, and they have stories to tell and work that they want to capture that way. Maybe you're working with second graders and you're learning about the water cycle, and students have created this, artwork describing the water cycle. They can easily take a photo and add it to Seesaw. I have some stories about patterns to tell. Again, anytime you're doing math, Seesaw is a perfect layer to add on top to reflect on that lesson. So I want to talk a moment about this example. Because in my kindergarten class, I use Seesaw with a patterning lesson. And really, we were talking about A, B patterns. Very, very simple. And I wanted to see at the end of that, what did they take away? What could they create? What could they do? I wanted to see where students were at. So I said, off you go, use anything in the room, create a pattern that has 2 colors. And then take a picture in Seesaw, add it to Seesaw. And when I got these back, I saw this little guy's, and the first thing I said was, oh my gosh, totally doesn't know about AB pattern. This is not an AB pattern. But I thought, wait a second. This child was able to go so much further because he had some options for creating, right? So he's creating a very, very complex pattern with 2 colors. If I would have just had students, fill in a blank or, had started a pattern for them and they finished it, I would be limited for my depth of knowledge for what they could do. So this was an amazing, for me, it was kind of an aha moment of like, ooh, they can take it so much further when they have that opportunity. So you can also draw on a photo. So maybe it's illustrating a math concept like here, demonstrating parallel lines. Maybe you're doing a science experiment in your class. We were growing crystal gardens, and I thought, okay, before Seesaw, I had science notebooks. Students would spend, maybe 15 or 20 minutes trying to draw and record what happened in a science experiment or, a science exploration we were doing. And then I always found myself rushed, like, oh no, we got to be done with that. Let's move on to the next thing. And they lost that time to actually reflect. And I thought, my goodness, when Seesaw came along, they can snap a photo quick, they can draw on it, and then they can actually spend the time reflecting instead of trying to capture it in other ways, which was huge. Now, my favorite example of getting started with Seesaw is once students take a picture at Writer's Workshop, they have this amazing story they want to share, right? And we know all students want to share all of their stories with us. But if they have Seesaw, they can take a photo of that writing and then tap the mic and record.
I am great at art.
So I love this, right? You hear their sweet little voice. Not only do you hear their voice, but especially if you're working with littles that aren't yet really spelling correctly, they're just understanding concepts of print, you can actually decipher what they're writing. But more importantly, they have this in their portfolio and they can go back and see the progress that they have made because we know they make tremendous progress throughout the year. How about sight word checks, right? Don't we all love when we do sight word checks with students individually and you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to take me 30 to 40 minutes to do this. But what if you hang a sight word list on the wall? Students go over and take a picture and then they start reading those words all by themselves.
I can read this week's sight words. There, about, explain, school, were, because, able, between.
Okay, so this is 10 seconds of the student writing these words or reading these words. I can listen to them, outside of instructional time, after the lesson is over. And it was me, the teacher here, that had circled the word that was misread. So I know that we can go back and visit that. But just imagine you're saving probably 30 minutes of time in your classroom if students can do that, on their own, and you can still get that insight. So we're going to do some creating right now with photo and voice, which is my favorite. Now, I know I didn't prepare you for this, but I'm sure close to you, you might have a piece of paper and maybe a pencil or a pen that you can spend 10 seconds sketching a picture of yourself or sketching something, right? Maybe it's a smiley face. Maybe it's something you're going to do this weekend. Take 5 seconds and sketch something out because it's going to come into play with what we're going to do next. And no, we don't need to be artists. We're just practicing with some tools here. So you can sketch for a moment, but what we're going to do is we're actually in a moment going to find this activity, okay? And it's going to ask you to take a photo of your drawing and then tap the mic and actually tell us about you, okay? But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself because I haven't talked about activities yet. So the first way that students can use Seesaw is what you just explored, right? You went to that green add button and you tapped it and got right to our creative tools. Now we're going to explore another way that students can add to Seesaw, and it's via the Activities tab. So if you'll notice right now, when you're looking in Seesaw as a student, you're going to see this Activities tab. Now this allows me, the teacher, to share something with students. And what you're going to see if you tap that Activities tab is you're going to see this activity waiting for you. Now to respond to this activity, you're actually going to tap the green add button on top of that activity. Now you might be thinking, Angela, how would I use this with my students? Activities are great because, do you see these picture cues that are included here? Maybe you've just done a mini lesson and you've modeled and off students go, and we have those friends that need that additional support, right? They might need the picture cues to remind them. They might want to listen to me tell them the instructions again so they can play the instructions, right? All these other words are mostly for you, the teacher, to kind of walk through the steps. But we're going to try this here as a student. So go ahead and tap that green add button. Follow those cues as to what steps you are going to take to respond to this activity. And then I'm going to show you what that looks like on the teacher side. So here we go. Okay, so how did you do? We'll take a peek in our class in just a moment, but congratulations, you just did your first activity. So again, I shared this activity with you, so it was waiting in the activities tab. You responded using Seesaw's tools, and as you're going to see in a minute, and as we explored in the first example, I get to approve all this work before it goes anywhere in Seesaw. So we're gonna jump into the class for just a moment so we can see it from the teacher perspective. I'm going to refresh because I might have people still submitting their work. So I'm just going to go here to review. Now you'll notice when, oh, look at that perfect spring break. Look at you learning on spring break. Love it. Do you see this gray bar on the top? This gray bar on top means that this is in response to an activity. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this. Looks great. You guys are amazing, amazing artists out there. Love it. Now, what's cool, actually, if I tap this gray bar, I have a view of all of my responses in one spot. So if you're thinking, oh, did it, if you want a kind of a big picture of what everyone in your class is doing and responding, it's right here. You can also see who hasn't responded yet. So you can, check in with that student as well. I'm going to go ahead and tap this approve button at the bottom to approve all of these posts. So those will show up right there. Now, because we are sharing portfolios in this class, there might be several people sharing the same journal as you today. So you might think like, where is mine? I don't see mine. And it's because we're kind of sharing today. So again, same flow. I'm approving all of that work before it goes anywhere else. Let's go into some more examples of ideas that you can try in your classroom. So when we're combining these layers on these creative tools, we can take a photo, we can record voice, we can draw on it. Here's a second grader explaining a math concept.
This is a group of 16, and I figured out 16 is an even number because there is 8 groups of 2, and none left over. I can also do an addition sentence. 8 plus 8 equals 16.
So that is done all inside Seesaw, starting with a photo, adding drawing and voice. And again, amazing insights about this student, right? You can clearly hear and see what they're thinking and have a clear path of what's the next step. Oh, I just have to pause because I love, love, love Seesaw at literacy stations. Or if you're doing guided reading, any sort of small group work where you have the rest of your students off independently working, right? That's what we hope, at least. So in my classroom, we had literacy stations. So I was doing guided reading. I had several different centers throughout the room. One of them was the word workstation. And this is an example of a student using Seesaw to capture their learning there. I love the accountability that this lends to this work time, but also that they can still use tons of hands-on materials and still capture it in Seesaw as well.
These are the words that have T in them. 2, that's, what, and the.
Okay, again, this took 9 seconds for the student to record this. And I know, oh, we're going to revisit that word. We're going to do maybe another small group on that, okay? What about reading fluency? Don't you wish you could listen to more students read all of the time? They can easily snap a picture in Seesaw and start reading. This student has actually added a little reflection here too, what they think is going to happen next. When you get these slides, all of these links here are live links where you can actually go and hear the example. So this is a student using it. After leaving my guided reading group, they went off independently and were trying to apply this strategy.
I think that he planned to have the pie before he said no to his friends, because he said no to his friends and he said, come to my house. He would have said yes if they could have cherries. Here's the spot in the book where they talk about it.
Right, so we're supporting predictions with text evidence, right? I want to just check in because I talk really fast. I have so many things to tell you and really want you to get started, but I want to know how you're feeling. So I'm launching a poll right now. How are you feeling? Are you getting excited? Are you feeling like, whoa, my head is spinning. I have so many things that I could be doing here with Seesaw. Hope you're feeling good. We have some more time together, so don't worry if you're feeling a little bit like, whoa, I need you to slow down. If you're feeling like, slow down, Angela, don't worry. You're going to get the recording as well, so that'll be great. We're going to have question time at the end too, so stay tuned for that. So most people are feeling awesome. Some are saying good. Some are saying slow down a little bit. So I'm hopefully going to try to do all of that. So here we go. You should be able to see my screen because we are going to talk next about the drawing tool. We've really talked about the photo tool, right? We know we can do tons of things with photos. We can draw on top of them. We can record voice. But if we go to the drawing tool in Seesaw, again, you're going to see this just from that green add button. You'll find the drawing tool right from that green add button. But you can start even with a blank slate here. So very much like probably any sort of drawing program that you're familiar with. You can draw, you can erase, you can change colors, but in Seesaw, you can record voice. You can also add labels. So it kind of creates a situation where you can get pretty creative. This example is one that I don't think is the best example of the most creativity, but it was definitely an aha moment in my classroom. I think it was about this time of year where I was feeling quite stressed out about the number of assessments that I was going to do with students individually. And I thought to myself, okay, I have 5 iPads. I can have 5 students at once count by 5s for me instead of sitting one-on-one with my students. So we got the drawing tool. They wrote their 5 and off they went to our recording spots in our classroom, which were just the 4 corners of my classroom, and started counting.
I can count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45.
Spoiler alert, she gets to 100, which is awesome. And again, I'm having 5 students do this at the same time. Off they go, and then I can pull 5 more students. And I have just saved myself a ton of time. I have great evidence of what the student can do, and I can go back and listen to it again. How about an example of using drawing to create labels? So this student actually is doing a word sort. So they're sorting these words that have E and not E. They're reading them. So when you can peek at these slides, definitely check out some of these examples. Here's an example of a student that was working in a makerspace type project, and they've taken a photo. They have added labels to the top of it and also done some drawing. So we are going to actually explore a little bit with photos, drawing, and voice right now. And in order to do that, I'm actually going to show you a little bit about how you can find some of these activities that are ready for you to use right now in Seesaw. So we are going to browse the activity library. And you're going to watch me do this because this is something that's only accessible via the teacher view. So right now I'm in our class. I'm going to go to this green add button. And I mentioned before, when a teacher goes to that green add button, we have some more options here. So the top option is to browse the activity library, which we're going to do right now. So when I go into browse the activity library, you are going to see there are thousands of activities actually in here ready for you to use, ready for any Seesaw teacher to use for free. So we have up here our collections of activities, and actually the collection I want to point out to you, on my screen it's actually going to be found way down here and to the far right, and it's called Getting Started with Seesaw. And this one I'm going to click on is Getting Started with Seesaw in First Grade. Now, because you are just beginning, you are probably going to see this collection at the very top of the activity library for you. But I want to go into here because I think this is a perfect place for you to start when you're getting going with your students. So if you go into that activity library and you're like, where should I begin? What should I do first to get my students going with Seesaw? This is the spot to go. We have these Getting Started collections at every single grade level, so you will find one that matches your students. This first activity is Show What You Know in Math, okay? They're taking a picture of something they're doing in math. They're just using the photo tool. The next activity is Recording Writer's Workshop. They take a photo of their writing. They then add their voice. And the activity we've done today was this Get to Know You activity. where you took a photo, you added voice, and maybe you did some drawing, right? Now, the next activity I want to show you, the fourth one that you could have your students do, is about goal setting. And I'm going to click on this activity because when I tap the heart, that's going to save it to my library. Basically, you're creating a copy of it for you to use. So I'm going to click on this activity. When I click on it as a teacher, I'm going to see all of the instructions. So as I was saying before, if you're thinking, oh my goodness, my pre-K students, no way are they reading all this stuff? This is when the instructions kind of come into play, when you're browsing the activity library and you as a teacher want to know exactly what the steps are to this activity. This is really for your benefit. Of course, when you have students that are reading and you're working with older students, these written directions are great as well. So a couple things I want to point out. This activity actually has a template attached to it. And this is a photo that I have added so that you have a starting point to complete this activity. Actually, under the template, I also want to point out teacher notes. These are great for you to read because they're just going to give you a little bit more context about the activity, maybe how you would use it, how you would apply it in your classroom. So don't forget about checking out teacher notes if they exist on an activity. But when I'm ready to share this with my class, which I'm ready to share this with you, I'm just going to tap share. Now I have tons of different Seesaw classes. You might just have one. We are in new pre-K2. That's the class we are in right now. So I'm going to share this activity with you. And what I want you to do is when you look in Seesaw right now, you're going to go to the activities tab and you are going to find that activity waiting for you. What you're going to do is tap that green add button, use the drawing tools and draw a picture of your goal. What is a goal that you have with Seesaw? We've talked about a lot of things today, but what are you actually going to do maybe tomorrow in your class? What are you going to do 3 days from now? What are you going to try next week with your students? Write down some of those goals. Try to be as specific as possible so that you're more likely to actually give it a go. Then go ahead and tap that mic and tell us your goal. So play around with the tools, do some voice recording, and then add your response to our Seesaw class. I'm going to give you some time to think about that. What is your goal as you get started here with Seesaw? All right, so hopefully you've had some time to play. Of course, you can always come back and play some more on your own time via the recording as well. Just a reminder, when you are ready to get started and you want to share some activities with your students and you're thinking, where do I even start? This Getting Started collection that you'll most likely find in the top of the activity library on the far left is a perfect place to go first. That's really going to teach your students step by step the individual tools in Seesaw, much like we have experienced today. So that's a great spot to go first. So we kind of already peeked at this, right? They introduce one tool at a time. They're a great spot to start. We haven't talked about connecting families yet to Seesaw, and that is such an amazingly powerful aspect of Seesaw. So families actually use a different app. They use a Seesaw Family app, and it's totally free. They can also go to the website app.seesaw.me to create their family account. And what you will do as a teacher is you can use Seesaw. Maybe you have announcements. Maybe you want to send home class photos or newsletters. We're going to explore connecting families more in Brand New to Seesaw Part 2. We're going to kind of go more in depth there. But when you connect families, and I'm going to show you this in just a moment in our real class, you're going to get two options. You can print paper invites for them, or you can view a sample email that you can copy and just send electronically to families as well. I always sent home the paper invites. You'll notice here the language here says English, but there's a drop down arrow. That's because this invite is translated in several different languages if you need that for your families. Now, I want to also talk about, I want to show you first how easy this is. If you're like, what, how do I invite families? So I'm back here in my Seesaw class. When I'm ready to connect families, in the bottom right, I just tap plus families. And here we go. If I want to print the paper invites, I just go print paper invites, and Seesaw is doing all of this work for you. They are creating individual letters for every single student in your Seesaw class to carry home with them, okay? And then families, these are kind of just some instructions for you, but here is the letter. It basically says to families, download the Seesaw Family app, choose Create Family Account, scan this QR code with Seesaw, the Seesaw scanner, right? Or they can do it from the computer. Both sets of directions are there. You'll notice at the top, remember how I named this class letters of the alphabet like A, B, C? This is actually the student in your class's name. So there's student A, here's student B, it might say Ben, and this one would say Charlie. So make sure you get the right letter home with the right student, but these are created for you in Seesaw. And again, that was just by tapping that plus families button in the bottom right of your Seesaw class as a teacher. So I know a chunk of you haven't yet created your Seesaw class, and it's so easy to get started. So if you want to get started, all you would need to do is sign out of Seesaw as a student by tapping in the upper left corner your profile icon and going to sign out. Then when you go into Seesaw again, you can just tap I'm a teacher, and it will walk you through the steps for creating your very first Seesaw class. So you can easily do that. I want to talk about this class QR code because today I shared this class code with you. This is not something you want to share with anybody. You want to have it securely placed in your classroom. You don't want to include this in social media posts or any sort of photos because it's basically the password for your Seesaw class. So you don't want to show that to anybody else. Of course, this was a global class, so I showed it to you today. I also want to let you know we have help.seesaw.me. You're going to want to bookmark this website. This is your go-to spot with any sort of Seesaw questions, or if you're like, oh, help, I need some help. Just go here and ask a question. We are here for you. Privacy is critical to us here at Seesaw. We protect your, it's really fundamental to our entire mission. We have an entire section of our website devoted to privacy, so you can visit it at web.seesaw.me/privacy. So make sure to check that out as well and let us know if you have any questions. We didn't talk much about this today, but we do have Seesaw for Schools, which is our paid premium feature of Seesaw, which allows your students to build a portfolio of student learning throughout their entire time at your school. You can assess student progress towards standards with additional tools for formative assessment. And as an administrator, you have a dashboard that lets you really see what's happening, right, in various Seesaw classes, but what's also happening with family engagement out as well. So you can learn more about that at our website. But I also want to thank you for coming today. And I appreciate all your time, and we always want feedback and we want to know what you need help with next. So you'll see a survey pop up if you are here live that we would love for you to fill out. And finally, before we go into questions, I want to make sure you are aware of our amazing Seesaw community because we have spaces on Facebook called Seesaw Teachers. We have groups for every single grade level. We have large groups and small groups. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. So make sure to check out those spaces. And of course, you know how to find our webinars at web.seesaw.me/PDS. We would love for you to stop by again and learn some more about Seesaw. And of course, I'm Angela, so you can find me on Twitter at Mrs. Gadke as well. So we appreciate all of your time here today.